let's step into the writing side. So this is the first section, and like I said, we're going to talk about this for about 20 minutes, then we're going to take a break for questions. So, writing. Remember, this is the art side of the conversation. This is where there's mugs of coffee and glasses of wine and butterflies in your laptop, and we're creating wonderful books, knowing that there's people like me out there waiting to read wonderful books. So, craft and art, that's going to be the majority of the umbrella discussion for this first section. Craft, step number one, is know your genre. Now, I'm going to assume that the people that are attending this webinar know what romance book novels are because you signed up for a romance webinar. That being said, you'd be surprised, out of those 25,000 queries, how many people don't know what genre they're writing in or query an agent for the wrong genre of book. So let's give you a couple of really clear tips, and I'm going to guess y'all are going to breeze through these tips and go, yep, Megibow, we got this one down. That being said, it behooves me to start at the beginning, so here we're starting. Know your genre. A romance novel is a book that is shelved in the romance aisle of a bookstore. Period. There's probably 10,000 people last year that got rejections in the query slush pile simply because they didn't know that much about publishing. So this slide and point number one is going to reduce rejections in the query slush pile already. So walk into a bookstore, whether that's Walmart or your grocery store or Barnes & Noble or Books A Million or Powell's, and go to the romance aisle and look at the romance aisle and buy books in the romance aisle and read books in the romance aisle, or go to the library and borrow books in the romance aisle. So a romance novel is a book that's shelved in the romance aisle of a bookstore. Objectively, a romance novel has a happy ever after. Objectively, there are two protagonists, and each protagonist has a point of view. This one isn't always true. Sometimes there are 3 protagonists or 4 protagonists in the case of Tiffany Rice's books. Sometimes only one of those protagonists has a point of view. Usually, though, if we're talking about formula in the romance genre, we're talking about 2 protagonists, and each one has a point of view. They both need to have character development. I was talking about this on Twitter with Ronnie or Loren this morning. They both have to have character development. So a romance novel is not a book in which a woman comes into the story, solves all of her own emotional and sexual problems, and moves on. It should be a story about 2 people, or again 3 or 4 people if it's a menage story, who each grow and develop through the story. There should be sexual tension and sexual completion. It can be sweet, it can be sexy, it can be erotic, but this is a fundamental formulaic piece of a romance novel. If there's no sexual tension, then probably the book is a women's fiction or a commercial fiction, and that's fine too, but that's not what this webinar is about. And finally, we're looking at a really specific word count. So a single title romance novel that's in print in Barnes & Noble is 85,000 to 100,000 words, maybe 105,000 words if it's fantasy, maybe 80,000 words if it's part of a series in mass market paperback, but it's not 150,000 words and it's not 40,000 words. There's also a really robust ebook first segment of this market, which can be 50,000 or 60,000 words or shorter or a little bit longer. And that's part of knowing this genre, but word count, and then it wouldn't be pitched as a single title, it would be pitched as a novella or a short work. But that's part of understanding the genre, and this slide right here, good news, you got this one down in terms of looking at your craft, and you have written a romance novel.